Hello and welcome to the latest Barb Briefing. I'm Justin Sampson, Chief Executive of Barb. It's great to welcome a wide range of industry contributors to this morning's session, which focuses on our strategic need to deliver a virtuous cycle of campaign optimisation across linear and VOD services. We'll be joined by 3 commercial broadcasters, Channel 4, ITV and Sky, a leading media agency planner from OMD, and 2 leading VOD services, Disney Plus and Netflix. Given the number of people involved and our aim to keep the event tight so you can get on with the rest of your day, we've pre-recorded this morning's event. While we won't be taking questions, we'd love the opportunity to come and meet you to talk about our latest developments. My colleague Luca Vanini will share contact details later so we can follow through with you. Providing accountability for the investment made by businesses in advertising products and services is one of Barb's 3 core purposes. Our data are also critical to providing accountability for £8 billion that's invested each year in deciding which programmes to commission, which to acquire and where best to distribute them. And our data are baked into the regulatory process of assessing how broadcasters and advertisers fulfil their responsibilities to society. And as important as these processes are, we don't intend to dwell on them this morning. Our focus is how Barb data underpins the buying and selling of advertising. Now, across the whole of our industry, accountability for the investment of over £20 billion in media advertising relies on trusted evidence of how people consume the wide range of media services that allow marketeers to talk to both new and existing customers. And accountability relies on many things, but above all trust, which breeds understanding, which breeds confidence, which in turn delivers accountability. And in this world of data abundance, our industry is increasingly asking which data can be trusted to support judgments that are integral to decisions about which media to invest in, how much to invest, and how effective a campaign has been. Time doesn't allow us to dwell on the breadth of evidence needed to assess campaign effectiveness. Suffice to say, a trusted measure of how many people saw a campaign and how often is vital. Barb's superpower is that we are the industry's standard measurement for what people watch. Like other joint industry measurement services, our approach to collecting and reporting data has been forged in the fire of consensus building. This underpins our ability to deliver audience data impartially and objectively. For over 40 years, our data has delivered trusted exposure data for campaigns that appear on linear channels. And we've continuously evolved to keep pace with all the latest developments in how programmes and ads are made available to viewers. Today, we will talk about how we're delivering a virtuous cycle of campaign optimisation across linear and VOD services. Firstly, we'll hear about the recent upgrade to CFlight, the world's first joint industry post-campaign reporting system for linear and VOD services. We'll then hear about Advanced Campaign Hub, a pre-campaign planning tool that enables effective allocation of budgets across linear and VOD services. And you'll then hear from 2 of the leading SVOD services, Disney Plus and Netflix, about their ambitions for taking advertising and why they're working with Barb. So I'd like to hand over now to Tony Regan, who's going to moderate a conversation with Jack Perlman of OMD, Lucy Bristow of Sky, Nicola Harrison of Channel 4 and Kate Waters of ITV. Over to you, Tony.
Thank you, Justin. So we're here in Barb's offices to have a conversation with an elite group of industry stakeholders who've got something they can tell us all about CFlight. And we're going to talk about the story so far, how CFlight has come to this point in time and the road ahead. And we're at a significant moment with CFlight coming under the governance of Barb and with the launch of new expanded list of trading audiences that CFlight can now offer. Well, we all know each other, we've met before, but for the audience, can I ask you all to introduce yourselves?
Thanks, Tony. So I'm Jack Perlman, I work at OMD UK in the media planning team.
I'm Lucy Bristow, Research and Insight Director for Sky Media.
I'm Kate Waters, I'm Director of Client Strategy and Planning at ITV.
And I'm Nicola Harrison, Senior Planner Manager at Channel 4.
So I'm going to start with you, Jack, and I know that you're part of the joint industry working group, so you're familiar with both the perspective of OMD but also the wider perspective of the agencies generally. Tell me, Jack, about what is important in CFlight for your agency and for the agencies generally and for your clients.
Yeah, so the level of data we've had from a TV point of view has always been really, really vast. So we've been able to look at, you know, by day, by hour, the reach, the impact, what a person who has a dog watches. So we've got such a plethora of data that it's always been great, and we as planners really love to dig into that data and find nuggets of information that can help unlock the answers for our clients in a TV point of view. Now more and more, obviously, the landscape becomes more fragmented. It's all well documented, we're all aware. So I think now for us, the next step is what does that look like? How do the two interplay from a TV and BVOD point of view? And what does that look like in terms of incremental reach and frequency, and thinking about what the impact is for our clients, I guess. It's a very complex thing, and that's why it's taken some time, but it's really, really important for us that we're now able to demonstrate, yes, we've been saying this either redistributes frequency, makes you reach more people, reach more of your target audience, and now it's a time where we can actually demonstrate with this tool, this set of data, actually this is what you've achieved, and what we've been saying from a fragmentation point of view in the landscape, from this is going to give you more audiences, a more efficient with your spend. We're now actually going to be able to do that with a lot more accuracy.
Good, and of course CFlight isn't brand new. I'm going to turn to you next, Lucy. CFlight's not brand new in the UK. It's new to Barb in the sense that it's coming under Barb's governance now, and it originates in the States with Comcast. So can you tell us a little bit of the story of how we got to where we are now?
That's right, and I think it really started with, the idea for CFlight at least started with NBCU in the US, where they were trying to unify impressions at the time across all platforms, screens and devices between linear and VOD. And so that was working quite well as an idea. Now, when Sky came along, we thought we'd like to develop it. It's a great concept. It's a simple concept, but we needed to take it a stage further. And so we evolved the idea within the Sky ecosystem to calculate reach and then deduplicated reach in turn. So we work with partners RSMB and PwC to make that development, to make that enhancement. But our agencies were saying to us, we really like this methodology, this simple way of calculating a very complex concept in terms of the deduplication. We like this idea, Sky, but it's not enough for us. We need to include all broadcasters within that calculation methodology.
So can I ask you, Nicola, to pick up the story of what then took place as CFlight broadened from a Sky proposition to a cross-industry proposition?
Yeah, so I mean, Sky had obviously successfully launched CFlight to the industry, and as Lucy says, there was a need then for it to be taken more broadly, and Sky had that recognition early on that actually that's a possibility. So they then, back in 2019, initiated conversations with the broadcasters via the ThinkBox board. The individual broadcasters and the research leads were able to support this by going and looking at our data sets, making sure that we could collectively bring our data sets together to be included into CFlight. So this was taken back to the ThinkBox board. The commercial directors could all see the value and the merit in this as an industry solution, greenlit the project, and so then we began working together in earnest right at the start of lockdown, which is an interesting time to be embarking on such a major initiative. But yeah, that collaboration just sort of continued in that vein. Very regular meetings, very frequent meetings, and a real commitment from all of the broadcasters to put that time and invest in making sure that we could bring the solution to market, because it was very complicated and challenging.
And then the transition from ThinkBox governance to Barb governance took place at the beginning of this year. Kate, do you want to tell us a little bit about that transition process?
So I think it feels like a very natural evolution, I think. So, thanks obviously to Sky for getting CFlight going, and to everybody for kind of collaborating. But obviously Barb is our industry JIC, and CFlight is now very much a cross-broadcaster initiative. So it makes sense, I think, to move CFlight under the governance of Barb. If you're an advertiser, if you're an agency, you absolutely trust Barb to deliver gold standard measurement for linear. And I think moving CFlight under Barb's governance means therefore that agencies and clients can be absolutely assured that they're going to get exactly the same thing with CFlight. So I think it makes huge sense, and it feels like a very natural and the obvious place, I think, for CFlight to now sit.
So here we are at Barb, and continuing that conversation. So I think actually now it means that we get to the science bit. I think I can ask you, Lucy, to tell us about how you and everyone have managed to derive some kind of simple outputs, essentially, meet some relatively simple needs, I guess, that the industry might say. We only need deduplicated reach and frequency for linear and VOD. How hard can that be? Perhaps you're going to tell us something of how hard it can be, but how well you can produce the simple outputs.
Yeah, and listen, there are papers and documents and all sorts of frameworks around the methodology and operationally how it works. I'm going to have to be very simple in the time that we've got. But I think the important thing to remember is that it's complex in terms of the operations to make the thing work, to get it into TechEdge, and to enable Jack and his colleagues to be able to very simply, at the push of a button, extract their report for their chosen Barb demographic. So operationally it's hard, methodologically it's hard as well in terms of the science behind it. But just to touch on the operations, we had to enable two very significant changes in our industry, which I think not everyone quite appreciates. And the first one was to create a new classification system for broadcast to VOD. And obviously we have this for linear today. It works very well via Clearcast Peach, but we had to enable that for VOD as well, so that when each of us broadcast a VOD commercial, we have the same creative number assigned to each of the same copy. Otherwise, we all had different systems internally of ways of doing that. Yeah. So we had to unify that so that when Jack makes his request, the linear and the BVOD copy number comes together in a simple way. And that was quite hard to do, but we achieved that, number one. Number two, we had to organise our BVOD, broadcast to VOD data sets in a simple and consistent way. Again, we have different ways of setting up that system, that data within each of our sales systems. So we had to kind of unify that and make it consistent. And then we had to make sure that the extracts, the files that were going to TechEdge were consistent as well. So we each working to the same spec. So that was quite hard to achieve, but we managed that, and a lot of investment going in from each of the broadcasters to make that happen internally. But that's a good thing. And then secondly, the methodology itself, the science that underpins CFlight is really quite complicated. And just to give you an example, RS&B and TechEdge are making 30,000 different calculations for every single Barb demo. And they are 30,000 different universe calculations. So the VOD ecosystem is really complex. There is a myriad of different household types that could have different access to different VOD platforms. So if you can imagine a giant Venn diagram, you might have a home that is watching via All4 and Sky, but not ITVX. So the model has to calculate the deduplication for every single one of those little Venn diagrams, if you like. So that has to go into the system as well. But once we've got that, we've got a pretty good way of working and a really good, clear methodology that sits under the TechEdge bonnet that can produce the CFlight reports that we've talked about in a simple way. And I just hope really that users around the industry can appreciate the sophistication and the rigour that goes into CFlight. We haven't just calculated a basic Sainsbury formula here. It's pretty complicated stuff.
So then let's turn back to Jack. What's exciting for advertisers and useful and valuable for advertisers and agencies about where we've got to with CFlight?
Really exciting for our clients, for us, and telling those stories and talking about the interplay between TV and VOD. More and more, the audiences now see the two as potentially one and the same. A lot more of BVOD activity is consumed via that big screen, and that big screen is really important to our clients. It's proven for econometrics to drive those brand metrics that they're very obviously very important for them to maintain. So for us to be able to demonstrate to them, this is the incremental reach, or this is enabling us to redistribute that frequency. We didn't talk too much about frequency. That's quite important for us as well. If linear TV is moving slightly older, then that could potentially be driving excess frequency. For us to be able to demonstrate that actually by having a portion of your spend against BVOD and potentially in future having more of a portion of your spend against BVOD in line with the marketplace, that's actually doing a job not only from a reach point of view, but also enabling you to kind of hit those effective frequencies and drive those brand metrics, not bombarding our customers or our audiences, and being as effective as possible in a channel that really drives those brand metrics and is really important from a client point of view and for us.
You press buttons in your agencies, Jack, and Nicola, I think you're going to be able to tell us a little bit about what happens, what people see when they run a CFlight report.
Yes, so now, there's now access to comprehensive campaign data at a total level, as well as looking at the individual contributions for BVOD and linear, and the traded audience piece now, which makes a big difference, now being able to see a more realistic representation based on your buying audience. So I think we've got a couple of examples, and it really shows how that traded audience piece works. So we've got an example here from a retailer, and you can see, so the report will give you, and you can see how the reach builds over time at a total campaign level versus a linear only level. And when you look at the example on the left, that's when you're looking at a young audience. So you can see how big the uplift actually looks for that audience compared to on the right, which is the 45 plus audience, where you might not see such a greater uplift. So when you're seeing it, the campaign reflected in the audience that you've bought, you can really see the contribution, the valuable contribution that broadcaster VOD can make. And again, with the second example, which is a cosmetics brand targeting young women, again, you can see how that reach builds and how the reach for combined linear and broadcaster VOD grows over time. Again, it's demonstrating what we've always expected it to look like, what we kind of always planned for, and we would always, from the data that we had, would expect to see. So now it's really good to be able to see it validated and see the proof in the data.
Yeah. So planners, agency people can see what's been delivered, but they can also learn more broadly about the different contributions, different amounts of contribution that VOD can make for different audiences.
Yeah, and you'll see a frequency breakdown as well. So as well as looking at the frequency overall, you can look at frequency bands, which again, as Jack mentioned earlier, the importance of being able to plan with frequency in mind and look at actually what the difference VOD can make and how that can help you adjust your frequency when planning holistically across both platforms.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you for that. And I think, Kate, you're going to be able to tell us about how CFlight also enables you to look across campaigns and learn some bigger picture themes about VOD's contribution.
Yes, I'm delighted actually that this analysis has been done, because I think, obviously a client will be interested in their own individual campaign, but as an industry, I think it's really important that we have some benchmarks for what we think VOD can deliver. So what you're seeing here is essentially a kind of meta-analysis. We've looked at lots and lots of campaigns and looked at the relationship between what we predict the incremental cover would be and what's actually delivered in reality. So there's some really nice benchmarks that emerge from this. So for 16 to 34s, for example, we predict that for every 1 percentage point of additional VOD impacts that you put within your campaign, that will deliver about 0.15 percentage points of incremental reach. So there's a really strong relationship between these two things as well. So you can see by the strength of the correlations that are here that we can really, this data is kind of very robust, it's statistically rigorous, and it therefore provides, really great benchmarks. And we can see a similar picture for ABC1s as well. So here, essentially what the analysis suggests, again, is for every 1% of additional VOD impacts, we get a 0.13 percentage points increment of an incremental reach amongst this audience. So I think to your point, it sort of, I guess, proves what we've always thought, which is there is, VOD can be a very powerful driver of incremental reach in those campaigns where that's what advertisers are looking to achieve.
Mm-hmm. Good. And so, and to that point, when research proves something we always thought, that doesn't mean that research isn't valuable because we didn't know before.
Yeah, far from it.
Yeah.
And I think it's the thing. Probably it's the question that we get asked more often than anything else, which is, what do you actually think the incremental impact of VOD is? And this is precisely what this data is beginning to show, which is, I think, a fantastic thing for us as an industry.
Thanks, Kate, and Nicola, for a sense of how CFlight can be used, the practical purposes of it. So we're in a good place with CFlight. That all of you have contributed to getting us to where we are. I guess I want to turn now to the question about where next for CFlight. So who's going to kick us off and tell us about where CFlight might be going next?
I think for us as an agency, I spoke previously before about the importance of big screen, and understanding TV and BVOD is a brilliant first step. There's mass scale in the audiences from a broadcaster point of view. So thinking about TV and linear together, linear TV and BVOD together is really important. There's obviously some emerging platforms, and we're starting to look at what those, where they sit on the plan. Now they're, again, more often than not, consumed via that big screen. So that bigger picture is really important for us. So the likes of Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, what are they adding to the campaign? And obviously they're growing and growing. So more and more it's going to be important for us to understand what's the incremental reach of each of those. How does the frequency distribute between each of those, so that we can better inform our future planning as that becomes a bigger part of our investment.
Yeah, and as as some of those people are going around town pitching to you guys and inviting you to invest with them, those campaigns, you're kind of keen to see the impact, the incremental reach and frequency that you've got from those campaigns.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just to add to that, that's one of the great benefits of CFlight being under the governance of Barb, because Barb will be having those wider, broader conversations that we just wouldn't have had, or been able to manage ourselves. And so Barb will be listening to the industry, listening to the agencies, listening to us, to sort of figure out what are the priorities, guys, what do you really need, and what's it going to cost. And we'll go through a process together to figure out what that roadmap looks like.
I think that's having the ability to look quite far ahead with a roadmap, because some of the developments could be really big developments, really intensive, really a lot of, needs to look at, the data and the methodologies and the inputs. Some will be smaller enhancements to the existing, what you can get from CFlight. So I think we can, a mix of those over time, from your big adding in, new platforms, streamers, to more smaller tweaks, like looking at being able to look at VOD-only campaigns and things like that.
I think also it's worth remembering that essentially what we're creating here also is a huge research database, right? There's going to be so much data there. And so actually I think one of the really exciting things before one even thinks about the roadmap for development is sort of saying, what more can we learn from this incredible database that we're building? So we've just shown a couple of examples of the kind of analysis that we can now do, but actually I think it'd be really exciting to do more of that, to look at, for example, how does this differ by category? Like not just how does it differ by audience, but what's the kind of, those kind of macro themes that we can draw out, so that as TV and VOD converge, as this kind of world becomes sort of more sophisticated, we can be giving more of those kind of learnings and more of those kind of benchmarks to our customers and our agencies.
That's definitely some of the conversations that we've been having internally in terms of let's start to build a bank of learnings, whether that be by audience or by category, so that we can better fuel and almost optimize to a similar degree that we have done historically with TV, because we've had this plethora of data in a BVOD space. And does that change the shape of your plan? Do you need to do more in the first couple of weeks of your campaign because you want to launch it the most effective way possible to reach as many people as possible? Or is it that TV is really effective in that first sort of half campaign, but it's really important when it's becoming more increasingly difficult to reach more people, that actually BVOD becomes even more important in that space? And we don't know the answers, but we're really keen to, within the media planning team, to get to those.
And size of linear
schools.
campaign as well
Exactly.
is something we haven't really drilled into, but we know it's a key driver. And that's something we need to look at.
I think it's as the there are so many unanswered questions, and I think, you know, I'm a relative newcomer to TV in some respects, and actually I was really surprised by how many questions there still were to sort of answer. And I think this kind of data set can really help us drill into that, and particularly as it's moving so quickly. You know, there's such a thirst for knowledge and for understanding, and so I think there's going to be plenty of data to keep all of our analysts and all of our researchers very happy for quite some years to come.
And I think because with being under Barb governance now, Barb obviously have a planning system with the Advanced Campaign Hub. Now CFlight, now we have actual campaign variances we can look at. There's, you know, the opportunity to then bring these areas together to look at, as we mentioned earlier, end-to-end solutions, which then, just adds to the insight and the knowledge that we have as we go forward.
Thanks, Nicola. And actually, you've done a great job of setting up where this Barb briefing goes next when you talk about Advanced Campaign Hub and how it complements CFlight. So we're going to be hearing from Luca next about that. So all that remains is for me to say thank you to all of you for this session. I think that's been very interesting for me and hopefully for all of our viewers at home and at their desks.
Thank you.
And now over to you, Luca.
Hi everyone, I'm Luca Vannini and I've recently joined Barb as Head of Campaign Audiences. In my role, I look after our total campaign reporting across linear TV and video on demand. At the heart of our strategy in this area, there are two complementary systems that Barb makes available to buyers and sellers. You've just heard about the recent upgrades and what is coming next for one of them, CFlight. But we also have the Advanced Campaign Hub for pre-campaign planning and budget optimization. The Advanced Campaign Hub was launched by Barb in 2020 as a way to support the campaign planning and optimization process across linear and VOD. It has evolved and improved since then in response to users' needs. It combines Barb panel data with first-party data, as census-level impressions are supplied directly by the participating VOD services. It works by assigning probability of using VOD services to each Barb panelist and then converting the probabilities into reach and frequency estimates. Every day, the Advanced Campaign Hub is being used by Barb commercial underwriters, IPA member agencies and advertisers to plan the delivery of VOD campaigns alongside linear TV, to support their investment in VOD and to evaluate the balance between VOD and linear. Any VOD or streaming service that is a full Barb licensee can participate too. The system enables planning across regions and day parts for all Barb-generated audiences. It allows to plan across all devices and by genre for sponsorship purposes. It includes an optimization function too. It is then possible to look at a range of output analytics from reach and frequency and coverage curves to spot laydown and secondary target audience delivery. But let's have a look at what analysis can be done in the Advanced Campaign Hub. For example, I'm planning a campaign for a brand targeting 16 to 34 adults, and I need to find out what is achievable within this target audience. I choose 200 TVRs as the size of my campaign, and I want to see what can be achieved over a 4-week period. I'm starting off by looking at what 200 TVRs in commercial linear channels can deliver for this demographic, which is 39% 1+ cover with an average frequency of 5.1. But then I want to see the impact on reach by adding VOD to the plan. So I've redefined the campaign, keeping 170 TVRs in linear and adding 30 TVRs across 4 broadcasted VOD services. Reach increases by 5 percentage points to 44% of the 16 to 34 target audience, with a slightly lower average frequency of 4.5. I can then look at the other metrics available in the Advanced Campaign Hub to assess the distribution of TVRs and impacts by linear channels and on-demand services, or to control the frequency distribution. And finally, I can add a cost dimension to the analysis, not only to understand what is realistic with my budget, but also to optimize spend. This is just a taste of the analysis that can be carried out in the Advanced Campaign Hub, a tool that agencies use on a daily basis to work out the best mix of linear TV and broadcasted VOD to offer clients who want to increase or maintain reach for a range of budgets. And to deliver comprehensive coverage of the industry, at Barb we've developed the tools for independent assessment of AVOD penetration, which will allow streaming services without tier offering to be included in the Advanced Campaign Hub. And now, back to Justin, who will introduce our next speakers.
That's great. Thanks, Luca. In recent years, our industry has been reaping the benefits of Barb's audience-centric measurement strategy. Since 2021, our daily audience reporting has included content and service-level viewing for the leading pure-play VOD operators. And recent figures show people spent an average of 40 minutes a day watching SVOD services, and this viewing is dominated by the big three. Collectively, Amazon Prime Video, Disney Plus and Netflix account for 95% of viewing within the SVOD category. And each of these three services now offers viewers the option to watch their favourite programmes with or without advertising. And as we heard earlier during the round table, there's a tangible appetite for Barb to extend our campaign reporting to include all VOD services. So it's natural for us to be in conversation with the streamers. And for a couple of years now, Disney Plus and Netflix have signed up to using Barb data. We're about to hear from each of them about their ambitions for advertising and their relationship with Barb. More recently, just last month in fact, Amazon also signed up to work with Barb data, and we're in the early days of discussing how we develop our audience reporting to encompass information about its ad tier. While we're not going to hear from Amazon at this morning's event, we're pleased to be engaged with the UK team and are optimistic about sharing more news and developments in the coming months. So let me introduce two contributors. Firstly, Deborah Armstrong from Disney, and then Andy Pang of Netflix. So over to you, Deborah.
Firstly, Disney Plus with advertising is a natural evolution for us, as advertising and brand partnerships have been part of Disney's business model for decades here in the UK and the rest of EMEA. So our advertisers and partners appreciate many of the same things: the opportunity to appear alongside some of the world's premier and most beloved content, but now expanded across Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars and National Geographic, as well as straight from the cinema movies like Wish, to award-winning general entertainment series like The Bear, or classic family staples like Modern Family. By the way, I also do want to mention the great local content like Sally Wainwright's Renegade Nell, which appeared in Barb's top VOD shows across its launch period here in the UK. Also to note that in our streaming offering, we have a very light ad load and obviously a coherent ad policy, making sure the right ad appears in the right content. So Disney Plus offers, through its ad tier, clients and advertisers what they expect from Disney, as well as an effective way to connect with increasingly more elusive audiences in an ever-fragmenting media landscape, particularly in the younger demographics. And whilst we're still in our very early days, we are acutely aware that audience measurement and data is fundamental as we look forward to collaborating with the industry and our clients on the next steps of our journey. First off, I want to say that we are very supportive of Barb and always have been. We have been partners in the UK for years with our linear channels. So of course we're supportive of a transparent and industry-appointed measurement. Indeed, moving to the next phase with a trusted, comparable measurement is fundamental for platforms, agencies and advertisers. And as a brand and platform that prides itself on quality, we also support Barb's measurement focusing on fit-for-TV content. So Barb really helps us understand the viewer, not just the customer. At its most basic, it gives us a more precise understanding of our audience and what they're watching. For example, we already know that we have a highly engaged and desirable audience, with over half of our adult audience being in the 18 to 34 demo, with the same number also adults without kids. Barb analysis also helps us demonstrate how strong co-viewing is on Disney+. And then, of course, we look forward to the next phase of SVOD ad tier measurement. Specifically, this means in terms of campaign planning and reporting, particularly as CFlight is now under Barb's governance. Ultimately at Disney, we're so fortunate to have great trust in our brand, the highest quality content and highly engaged fans and audiences. However, the market follows measurement and reporting, so working with quality measurement partners is a top priority for us.
We launched our ads plan back in 2022, approaching it in the same way as we do everything at Netflix, with a relentless focus on quality storytelling and on the member experience. So for Netflix members, we offer unmissable entertainment at unbeatable value, and an ads experience that is designed with care and with them in mind too. For brands, we offer a premium brand environment where they can drive ROI and create brand fame. Advertisers can put themselves alongside some of the most loved and talked about shows and films on British TV, like Fool Me Once, The Gentleman and Beckham, where deep engagement is happening every day. Barb's data tells us that Netflix has the highest share of identified TV set viewing from the 16 to 30-year-old age group at over 20%, showing that Netflix is a huge part of this demographic's lives. So we're very excited about the future of Netflix ads. Our ads membership has been growing by 70% quarter on quarter for the last 2 quarters, supported by improvements in our offering to members, like downloads and multiple streams. Now, the ads plan accounts for 40% of all Netflix signups in all of our ad countries. We still have more work to do. We've heard from the industry that they want to be even closer to everything that Netflix has to offer, and there's many opportunities for them to do just that. Whether it's title ad buys like Coca-Cola Schweppes did with the new Guy Ritchie's series, The Gentleman, last month, or getting involved in returning fan favourites such as Bridgerton Season 3 and Emily in Paris Season 4. We'll continue to listen to what our advertisers want, and we're excited to build the next evolution of streaming advertising. A key part of our measurement approach is transparency, and we want the industry to be able to make fair comparisons between Netflix and other TV services. We're committed to fitting into the TV ecosystem in a way that makes life as easy as possible for media planners and buyers. We want to provide unity in measurement that is audience-focused and of a high quality. Collaborating with well-respected partners like Barb helps us ensure this. The data empowers advertisers and agencies to be confident buying Netflix ads and all it has to offer. For a few years now, Barb has been reporting on our member base and providing valuable market intelligence and context for the UK market. According to Barb, Netflix represents a big part of people's viewing across all audiences, reaching 61% of the population monthly and accounting for over 33 million minutes of viewing. This is a huge audience, an audience that advertisers want to learn about.
You've heard today how we're delivering a virtuous cycle of campaign optimization across linear and VOD services, underpinning the buying and selling of TV and VOD advertising. Firstly, we heard commercial broadcasters and agency representatives talking about the recent upgrade to CFlight, the world's first joint industry post-campaign reporting system for linear and VOD services. The ability to assess campaign performance across 14 of the most widely used rated audiences has recently been introduced, and we're now planning the next phase of developments for CFlight. You then heard how our pre-campaign planning tool, the Advanced Campaign Hub, enables effective allocation of budget across linear and VOD services. And finally, we had 2 of the leading SVOD services, Disney Plus and Netflix, speaking about their ambitions for taking advertising and why they're working with Barb. At Barb, we're continuously evolving to keep pace with all developments in our programs and ads are made available by users. And being a joint industry currency, our program of continuous development, as ever, is fueled by feedback from the industry, which points us to 3 priorities. Viewing behavior isn't constrained by devices or distribution platform. This means that we need an audience-centric measurement that goes beyond the business models of all content providers. Buyers want transparency on editorial content and contextual measures of quality. And to enable the assessment of campaign effectiveness, there is a need for comparable impact data across all brand-safe content. These are the priorities that we must bear in mind as we continue to evolve what we're doing. There is now a joint industry workstream overseeing the methodology and any upgrades of both the Advanced Campaign Hub and CFlight. And this means that we're working with buyers and sellers to take our campaign reporting tools forward. As part of our conversation with the streamers, we have already developed solutions to independently assess the volume of AVOD take-up, which will allow to extend our campaign reporting to include all VOD services. And in parallel, the combination of panel data and big data that underpins our total campaign reporting remains at the core of Barb's measurement. We've bringing together the complementary strengths of data about people and big data about devices in the Dovetail fusion. But watch out for a big announcement in a couple of months' time on how we go even further on this. And in the meantime, if you have any questions on what you've heard today, or you would like to find out more about our total campaign reporting tools, please get in touch. Our contact details are here. We'd love the opportunity to come and meet you and to talk about our latest developments. Thank you.